Imagine waking up one day and making a decision that most people fear even thinking about, cutting off your own family. For many, family is supposed to be unconditional love, safety, and belonging. So when someone chooses to walk away from it, people often jump to harsh conclusions. They're ungrateful, they're selfish. How could anyone do that? But the truth is, the psychology behind people who cut off their family is far deeper, more complex, and often rooted in survival rather than rebellion. Today, we're going to explore what really drives someone to make this difficult choice, and what it reveals about human behavior, emotional boundaries, and mental health. Let's start with the most important thing to understand. People don't cut off healthy relationships. No one willingly walks away from love, support, and acceptance. When someone distances themselves from family, it's often because that relationship has become emotionally unsafe. In psychology, repeated exposure to toxic environments, like constant criticism, manipulation, control, or emotional neglect, can activate a chronic stress response. Over time, this doesn't just hurt feelings. It reshapes how the brain perceives safety. For some people, family stops feeling like home and starts feeling like a threat. And when that happens, distance becomes a form of self-protection. One of the most common reasons behind cutting off family is emotional abuse. Unlike physical abuse, emotional harm is harder to recognize, but just as damaging. It can look like guilt-tripping, gaslighting, invalidation, or constant comparison. Imagine growing up in an environment where your feelings are dismissed, your achievements are minimized, and your identity is constantly criticized. Over time, this creates something psychologists call learned helplessness, a state where a person feels they can never be good enough, no matter what they do. Cutting off family in this case is not an act of anger. It's an act of reclaiming control. Another powerful factor is boundaries. Healthy relationships respect boundaries. Toxic ones violate them. Some families operate on control rather than respect. They may expect obedience instead of individuality. They may see boundaries as disrespect rather than self-respect. So when someone begins to set limits, like saying no, asking for space, or expressing different beliefs, it can create conflict. And sometimes the only way to enforce those boundaries is through complete distance. This is especially true in cultures or households where individuality is discouraged. In these situations, cutting off family becomes a psychological necessity for identity formation. It's not about rejecting family, it's about discovering oneself. Now, here's something many people don't realize. Cutting off family is rarely an easy decision. In fact, it often comes with intense guilt. Humans are wired for connection. From an evolutionary perspective, being part of a group, especially a family, was essential for survival. So when someone breaks that bond, their brain may interpret it as a threat, triggering anxiety, guilt, and even grief. Yes, grief. Because in many ways, cutting off family is like mourning someone who is still alive. There's a loss of what the relationship was and a deeper loss of what it could have been. Many people who make this choice spend months or even years trying to fix things first. They try to communicate, they try to compromise, they try to endure. But when nothing changes, distance becomes the last option. Another psychological aspect is trauma. Childhood experiences shape our internal world more than we realize. If someone grows up in a chaotic, neglectful, or abusive environment, their nervous system adapts to survive that environment. But as they grow older, those same survival patterns can become limiting. For example, someone might become hyper-aware of criticism, overly anxious around conflict, or emotionally shut down. Cutting off family can sometimes be part of healing, removing the source of ongoing trauma to finally process it. It's not about running away, it's about creating space to recover. Now let's talk about something controversial. Not all family bonds are healthy. Society often promotes the idea that family is sacred no matter what. But psychology tells us something different. Relationships are defined by behavior, not by titles. Just because someone is a parent, sibling, or relative doesn't automatically make the relationship healthy. Respect, empathy, and support are what make relationships meaningful, not blood alone. And when those elements are missing, people may choose distance over damage. However, it's also important to understand that cutting off family is not always the only solution. In some cases, therapy, communication, and structured boundaries can help repair relationships. But this requires willingness from both sides. A relationship cannot heal if only one person is trying. And this brings us to another key insight. People who cut off family often develop strong self-awareness. Making such a decision forces a person to confront difficult emotions, challenge societal expectations, and define their own values. It requires emotional courage, because walking away from family means stepping into the unknown. No guaranteed support, no familiar structure, just you and your decisions. And that process often leads to personal growth. Many people report feeling more at peace, more confident, and more authentic after creating distance from toxic family dynamics. But that doesn't mean it's painless. There are moments of doubt, moments of loneliness, moments where they question if they made the right choice. And that's normal, because even unhealthy relationships can carry emotional attachment. Now let's address a misconception. Cutting off family is not always permanent. For some, it's temporary, a break to reset, heal, and reassess. For others, it becomes long-term. It depends on whether the relationship can change, and change requires accountability. Without accountability, patterns repeat. And without change, distance remains necessary. So what can we learn from all this? First, empathy matters. Instead of judging someone for distancing themselves from family, it's more helpful to understand that they may be protecting their mental health. Second, boundaries are essential. Healthy relationships are built on mutual respect, not control. And finally, self-worth plays a huge role. People who choose distance often reach a point where they believe, I deserve better than this, and that belief changes everything. Because at its core, the psychology of cutting off family is not about rejection. It's about survival. It's about healing. And sometimes it's about choosing peace over pain. So the next time you hear someone say they've walked away from their family, don't rush to judge. There's likely a story behind that decision, a story of struggle, of strength, and of someone choosing themselves, maybe for the first time. If you found this perspective valuable, take a moment to reflect on your own relationships. Are they built on respect or expectation? Because understanding others often begins with understanding ourselves. And sometimes, the hardest decisions reveal the strongest people. Before you leave, here's something interesting. If this video made you think even a little differently, that's your brain craving more insight. So go ahead, hit that like button and subscribe, because this channel is all about understanding the hidden psychology behind human behavior. Drop a comment below and tell me what you think, or suggest a topic. Your curiosity might shape the next video. And share this with someone who loves understanding people, or maybe someone who needs to understand themselves a little better. Now click on the next video on your screen. Your mind will thank you for it.